to T.O.M. Storytelling Hour, June 7th. Welcome, everyone. T.O.M. stands for Treasure Our Moments Through Storytelling. We believe in the power of storytelling because it brings us together and moves us forward. Let me introduce our co-host. By the way, my Misako, one of your co-hosts, and my co-host Tim is going to make a remark at the end of the storytelling hour, and our MC Asuka is going to be our MC. Take it away, Asuka.
Welcome, everybody. This is our third T.O.M. Storytelling Hour. Our third. We started in April, we had one in May, and now, of course, we're in June. Welcome, everybody. We were changing our speaker order just a little bit, so I'm going to jump right into our first speaker right now is Julie New. She's the author of The Grief Garden Path, and she's a personal recovery coach. She's a founder of Forever Flowers online group, and she's connecting to us from the UK. Please welcome Julie with her story, The Grief Garden Path. That's The Grief Garden Path, Julie New.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you, Misako, for inviting me here tonight. So the name of my story is The Grief Garden Path, and it's basically this little book, and it's really a book of hope. And the reason tonight we're talking about happiness, and you know, really, what I wanted to do was with this book was get across that it's possible eventually to find joy again and your life path. So, and also to get across the kind of for people to feel understood when they have lost a loved one, but also that they understand that process and the kind of emotions that they might feel when they do lose somebody that they love. So my story today is really my journey of writing that book, the reasons behind me writing it, and so on. So 3 years ago, I started to get like that itch. So, I mean, any of you here who write or have written books will kind of probably understand what I'm talking about. So with me, I start to kind of like wake up in the night and I start to get words, and I have to creep out of the bedroom and try and find the pad of paper. Here it is, you know, find the pad of paper and a pen in hand when I write my books. Because I love that sound of the pen on the page. That's something I really, you know, really like. So my first book that was published in 2012 is called Who Are the Flowers in Your Garden? A coffee table gift book. And the purpose of that book was to more deeply about their lives. People often ask, oh, you must be such a good gardener, Julie, and showing people, but I'm really not good in the garden. I'm getting better, but yeah, you get the drift. So in about 2008, I started using the analogy and the metaphor of life being like a garden. So if you don't look after a garden, what happens to it? You know, who are the flowers, the people in your life, you know, that matter to you? Is there anybody displaying wood-like behaviour life in your garden? You know, so this analogy started to grow, and I started using it in my work, and this book was born. So I write about life in all its technicolor glory, really. But my life changed forever when I entered my own grief garden path, and that was back. I'm going to take you to that place on the 25th of February 2009. I went out. It was a really, really busy day. I'd travel booked myself. I'd went out the door, the front door, got to my car, the phone rang. And I kind of thought to myself, well, shall I answer the phone or not? And I actually did answer the phone. And there was this nursing sister on the end of the phone. And she said, I'm ringing from Exeter. And I thought, well, I don't live in Exeter. I hadn't got a clue who. I said, I think you might have the wrong number. She said, I'm really sorry, but I don't have the wrong number. I need to tell you that Richard Jones has died. And I just thought, sorry, Richard Jones has died? She said, I'm really sorry to have to tell you. So Richard Jones had been my husband for 17, we'd been together for 17 years. We had 2 amazing daughters together. The best day of my life was actually the day I left him, ironically. And now the worst day was the day that I was going to have to tell our children that they were never going to see their dad alive again, that they were never going to be able to hug him again. They weren't going to have their daddy walk down the aisle when they get married, or when they have children. They won't have their dad there to hold them like he held them. And for that split second, I realized the tears were just like washing my face. But our grief garden path intensified in 2012. The happiness of the book coming out and, you know, the celebration of that was very short-lived, because my husband, Rob, who I'd only married 9 months before, died in my arms on the 8th of November 2012. And that, of course, plunged us into even more grief and what have you. But also, of course, I was, well, not of course, but I was a nurse, I was a midwife, I saw people born, I saw people mourn. And over the 20 years of being a nurse and then becoming a personal recovery coach, I helped people on their journey through life, through difficult times. That's what I do, that's what I specialise in. And I just started to write about this because I had to take about 3 years out of work. I couldn't carry on working. But about 3 years ago, as I say, I started writing and the words just started to flow. I started to ask people their stories with me. And I've got 9 stories in this very tiny book. I've got the loss of a loved baby, the loss of a loved child, the loss of a loved sibling, parent, grandparent, husband, wife, friend, and pet. There's a quote by Voltaire who says, if you speak with your head, you reach their heads. If you speak with your heart, you reach their hearts. But if you speak with your actual life, you reach their lives. And that is what I hope has happened with this book. It was released in the UK in National Grief Awareness Week. It was the very first one of its kind. And the person that wrote the foreword to the book, Linda Magistris, was behind that drive to get grief recognised in the UK as something that needed to be talked about, needed to be brought into the open. And of course, I had absolutely no idea that a global pandemic was going to hit the entire world. And it seems to me ironic, really, that I'm sat here talking to a global audience of people who we've all experienced, you know, similar things, but 400,000 people have now died globally. But that leaves multiple amounts of people more. So it's my goal now is to, you know, hundreds of people have read The Grief Garden Path already, but I really want to reach the goal of reaching 50,000 people with this book, because I know it can help them. So yeah, so that was that. But so if any of you have any contacts that that you could help me achieve that, that would be fantastic. But I just want to leave you with a little happy story. Amy and Polly, my daughters, the two most important flowers in my garden, are doing really, really well. And they're both, one's 24, one's 27 now, and they're both doing very well in their lives. And I got married a year ago, and we celebrated our first wedding anniversary in lockdown. So I just wanted to leave you with that happy, that happy image, that it is possible to find joy and happiness again after very difficult times. Thank you for listening. Hello.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you very much. And thanks to Julie for sharing heartfelt snippets of her life with us. And I forgot to mention earlier that happiness is indeed our theme for this month, June. And let's go right into our next speaker, Gus Matthias. He's a happiness enthusiast. Helping people is his nature. And he's an inspiring improv entertainer. He's connecting to us from California. And his story title is A Summer to Remember. Please welcome Gus Matthias with A Summer to Remember.
The year was 2007. The location was, as some people know, as the concrete jungle of São Paulo, a large city in Brazil, South America. So there I am, sitting in my classroom while I'm learning English, and just like any other day, very colorless, just practicing my to-bes, my to-dos, my to-haves, my to-travels. Wait, did anyone say travel? Can you think of one of those days where all you really want is a change? Anything else? Something new. Well, it wasn't until recently that I realized how happy of a kid I was. I was so lucky. I had everything. And I'm not talking about material things. But the thing is that at that time, no one actually came up to me and said, "What a happy kid." No. It actually took me decades to realize that. So there I am, sitting in my classroom, completely perplexed by this idea of going anywhere else other than my friend's house, when my English teacher come up to me and ask, "So, Gustavo, what do you think about the idea of doing an international exchange program?" Yes, of course. That was my immediate reaction. I really wanted to jump for it, without really knowing what the heck that meant. Interviews, dozens of immigration paperwork later, and hours later traveling to the other side of the country, or the planet actually, I finally arrived at a small city in New Hampshire, United States. And that was during the summer of that same year. It was hot. It was exciting. And I was scared. But I finally find myself at a summer camp with people from 40 different countries all around the world in that same place. Now, it's interesting to remember that we were reminded that I was in a camp for people that had special needs. So the first thing that we had to do during the first couple of days or week was to be trained on how to take care of the campers, how to shower them, how to feed them, and how to take care of their feelings whenever they were homesick. I was 18 years old at the time, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I did not know I was ready for all of that. However, I haven't imagined how many special people I finally got the opportunity to meet, no pun intended. Some of those people that I met was Brody, Billy, and Chris. So first camper was Brody. And Brody was a hyperactive kid. Sometimes he could sleep from 2 to 3 hours whenever he was really exhausted. And the thing is that he would run from one side of the room, he would open and close doors, to the other side of the room, open and close doors, all day, every day. I'm not kidding. So when Billy would run to one side of the room, I would run to the other side of the room. When he ran to the other side of the room, I would run to the other side of the room too. And whenever he barely slept, guess who barely slept too? The gift that I got from Brody was all of that energy that I decided to take with me to many other aspects of my life. Next came Billy. Billy was such a sweetheart. I still remember to this day, I would be from a distance observing him, and he would just be walking around camp on his barefoot, and he would just be feeling every step of the way, the grass on his feet, the sun on his skin, the breeze on his face. Whenever we would get to eat some food together, he would just be eating so slowly and just really tasting the food. And whenever someone would come up to him and ask, "Hey, Billy, how you doing?" he would slowly and very gently look up to you, open a big and wide smile, and say, "Fine." Billy appreciated every second of it. And here's what he taught me: to walk, to eat, to speak, and to breathe more mindfully. Last was Chris. And Chris was a huge man. He had a job, he could drive, he had a beautiful family with his wife, until a car accident took all of that away from him, including 90% of his ability to move. And here's the thing that really struck to me was that whenever someone would come up to him and just to check in, see how he was doing, he would always answer, "I'm doing fabulous." And that blew my mind because I was with him for most of the hours. We would be sleeping in the same room, and I knew he meant it. Chris really taught me how to be more humorous, how to look at on the bright side of things in life, and most importantly, how to be more optimistic. Now, in the end, there I am, waving goodbye as I'm on my way to traveling on the plane back to Brazil, South America, with a completely new mindset, more optimistic, more mindful, and more enthusiastic. Now, here's a bigger gift that I got was the new experiences, the new friends, and even a new girlfriend. And to tell that this is a true story, here's a picture of it. So this is us in the dining hall, and you can see people from all over the world. This is Estonia, Thailand, the US, Russia, Ukraine, France, Dominican Republic, and this guy right here, that's me. And that was my girlfriend, which turned out to be my wife. But that's something for another story. So was that finally when I realized how happy of a kid I was and how lucky I was to have all of that with me? Unfortunately, no. I was too naive to understand. But life wasn't boring anymore because I made a decision to change. And most importantly, I decided to take an action. Thank you.
Thank you, Gus. Thank you very much. I love the image of the summer camp in New Hampshire and the transformation you went through. And I'm biased because guess what? I grew up in New Hampshire. So great to hear that. Now, Misako, are we going to go on to our next speaker or are we going to take the break now?
Michelle is ready now. So let's go, Michelle.
Okay, great. Let me just go to that screen here. So our next speaker is Michelle Alba Lim. She's been nurturing many online storytellers. Her motto is, bring out the best in people, organizations, and communities. She's connecting to us from Oregon. Please welcome Michelle Alba Lim with her story, Happiness is More Than a Daily Decision. Happiness is more than a daily decision. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for bearing with the little glitch. I mean, it actually is part of this story, but let me backtrack a little bit to how I used to feel about happiness. I always believed, as far back as I could remember, that happiness was something that you managed. It was something that you decided you would have. And this was regardless of your circumstances. The worst, the tougher, the more miserable your circumstances were, that's when it was so important to make this daily decision to say, I will be happy. Regardless of my circumstances, I will be happy. We don't have enough time in 8 to 10 minutes for me to share why that was my mindset, but just to give you a little bit of a glimpse. My life was one where if I used to talk with a few very special girlfriends and they would say, if your life was made into a movie, people would say, oh, Hollywood is so creative. Nobody could have that kind of a really bad set of circumstances. So, you know, I leave your imagination to figure my life was never a bed of roses, but I was always happy, or at least I decided I would always be happy. And I made sure that I surrounded myself with people who would help me to achieve that decision that I made, that I'm going to be happy. Of course, these people are these people, Toastmasters, because whenever I would be in a tough situation, I would be thinking, this is going to make a really good speech. You know, the more difficult the situation is, the better the speech is going to be. And that was what my life was like all these years. And I would dare to say that, yes, I achieved it. I decided every single day that I would be happy. And friends who knew me would kind of agree that I was happy. But see, there was a difference. This was a managed happiness. This was a happiness that started in my head, not in my heart. It was a happiness that I would plan ahead. I would say, well, I know that 2 days from now, there's going to be a very tough situation. So I would get all my happiness gear ready. I would have my smiley face. I would have my smiley books. I would have my optimist creed. I would have every resource I possibly could have so that I could achieve that goal that I decided that I will be happy. My kids learned that as well. I always told them, it is not what happens to you that counts. It is how you respond to what happens to you. That's the difference. Now, I turned 66 last week. May 26th was my 66th birthday. And the past about 5 months have been some of the most trying times in my life. So I was gearing up towards my 66th birthday, telling myself, okay, I need to plan big time because on my 66th birthday, I'm going to be happy. See, remember, I decide that I will be happy. So I will be happy on my 66th birthday. I even created a 12-hour virtual, what did they call it? Michelle Memory Marathon. Yeah, triple M, because I like alliteration. So I created a 12-hour virtual online birthday celebration because I could not be physically with my kids. COVID had just wiped out my plans to leave. I am currently in Oregon, but I was supposed to fly out to the Philippines on April 28th. Guess what? The Philippines went on lockdown in March. It was very clear that by April, nobody's flying anywhere, especially into the Philippines. So around that time, I started creating that different direction. I would still be happy, but I would do it online. 12 hours, Michelle Memory Marathon. But then things got even tougher in my situation then. I was getting to a point where my decision to be happy was being tested sorely. And I started having visions of Jerry Springer. If you're in the United States, you will know Jerry Springer. That's a TV show where they start punching each other and yanking each other's hair, and they got big bouncers. I started having mental pictures of having Jerry Springer light. And that was not a good vision. Especially I started thinking, I know the cops where I live. I would not want to make a 911 call. Yikes. Or worse, I would not want somebody else to make a 911 call on me. So, you know, those were the kind of scenarios that I was experiencing on May 13 when I decided, no. Remember, I am the person who manages my happiness. This is not right. I am going to do something. So I went online and I typed the magic words, senior dating. I was expecting Match.com or Harmony.com, some of those familiar words. I get this. I thought at first it was Zoom. It was Zoosk, Zoosk. Like, seriously? But it said that this was one of the most popular and one of the best dating sites. Okay, well, what's to lose, right? So I clicked on it and oh my gosh, they had really tough questions like this, what is your profile? I skipped that because that was hard. The next question, what is your ideal match? Duh. So I said, is there even such a thing? And then the third question, what is your ideal date? And so I typed, you know, I'm going to flunk this. I'm going to flunk this. This is hard. But then I decided, wait. I am going to try and meet someone online. I am a netizen. I'm going to try and meet someone online. So I went ahead, put a song in the profile saying something like, I don't know how to describe myself. So think about this song. So I put the song, I put the refrain or one of my favorite lines from Carole King's Tapestry. My life, I'm not going to sing because I don't want to ruin your happiness. So I'm just going to say it. My life has been a tapestry of rich and royal hue and everlasting vision of an ever-changing hue, and so on. So I typed that there. And then I clicked. So now I had an account. Bing! There was a profile that came up. It said, oh, by the way, you're supposed to create an alias. So my alias was Midnight Magic. Duh, because I'm usually awake at midnight. Pop up, Silver Dancer. Ooh, interesting. Dancing. Okay. 1 mile from you? Whoa, that is close. So I am in a really small rural area, so 1 mile is really interesting. So I click smile, which means like, you know, kind of like your profile. Bing! Got a response. Okay, well, start chatting. This person says, well, I'm not really familiar with this. Here's my cell phone number. 714 area code. Well, that is my area code. California, here I am in Oregon. So it just goes really fast. And I'm looking at the time. So I need to end this by saying that was May 13. The reason I forgot, I'm sorry, I was late. I totally forgot this because I've been totally engrossed in a new chapter in my life. And I'm realizing, happiness is more than a daily decision. It's finding a person who is gentle, caring, thoughtful, considerate, loving, funny, and so much more, and who doesn't mind that I just ran out on him and his son, because I realized that I am supposed to have a speaking engagement today. So guys, everyone, yes, happiness may be a daily decision, but sometimes it's way more. Back to you, Ms. Sacco.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for spreading your happiness and enthusiasm. And yeah, during this COVID time, when you were talking about your family in the Philippines, I was supposed to be in literally about a week from now going to Clearwater, Florida to visit family for my aunt's 50th wedding anniversary. And I'm still trying to get over the disappointment and the almost despair of having that plan canceled. But again, it's how you react to the situation that can ultimately help you with your happiness. Well, moving on to our break, as Misako said, we have a 3-minute break, and then we have 3 more speakers once we return. All right, welcome back, everybody. On to our next speaker, Christy LeRae. She's the author of Messy Miracles, The Unfiltered Truth About Manifesting Abundance Through Depression, Addiction, and Divorce. And Christy is coming to us from Montana with her story, Messy Miracles. Please welcome Christy LeRae with Messy Miracles. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. What if I told you your world falling apart may be the best thing to ever happen? Everyone wants abundance, love, and wealth, and to achieve it, we're bombarded with advice to simply use positive affirmations and believe. Perhaps it's not this simple. Messy Miracles offers a new way to view manifestation. Within its pages, you will discover how to find your greatest joys after surviving your deepest fears, great love after enduring your darkest times, and true wealth after the ashes settle. Life as you know it may explode into a million shattered pieces, so you can put it back together in a new and improved way. In my book, I blend a mix of personal experience, life lessons, and research to help readers discover the miracle in the mess. And I will read you my introduction. I found myself waking up most mornings wishing I was dead. I had a great business, a beautiful home, a lakeside cabin, and a 13-year marriage. Everything seemed fine on the outside, but on the inside, I was severely depressed. I was drinking every evening until I passed out. The weekends were a blur of alcohol from Friday afternoon until I woke up still drunk Monday morning for work. My relationship with my husband was empty, and I had become empty. There was no passion, no intimacy, and very little communication. I had been unhappy in the relationship for years and tried different things to make it better, but it didn't help. I begged for affection and for him to hold me every night. He wouldn't. It had become obvious I was not where I needed to be. The only time in 13 years he really held me was the morning our beloved dog died about 12 years into the marriage. Our drinking was escalating. My husband became even more distant. He started to be very critical of me and cruel. Rude comments on my appearance and disrespectful treatment was the norm. I was reaching rock bottom, as was our relationship. He gave me mean nicknames and spent nearly all his time with his friends drinking. Moreover, I was having health problems, and my drinking was making it worse. My self-esteem was at an all-time low. I hated myself. I hated my life. I felt shame, guilt, self-loathing, worthless, and was severely depressed. I also struggled with my physical appearance. I really didn't think things could get any worse until the night my husband came home drunk and said he was done with me. He had been secretly involved with another woman in his circle of friends, and it had finally gone too far. He told me he fell out of love with me several years earlier and was using me for money. I was devastated. This was the bottom. I could barely breathe and wasn't sure I wanted to. Talk a little bit more in my book about how I got there, and then a lot about the practices that I used to find my happiness again and to dig my way out of it. And from chapter 4, shortly after I quit drinking the first time, I had the most interesting experience. My husband and I were in the backyard enjoying a beautiful summer evening, and two huge blue dragonflies kept flying up to me and looking at me right in the eyes. I would look right back and wonder. I knew they had a message, but I didn't really understand what it was. A few weeks later, after a cold storm, I found that dragonfly, one of them in my backyard, against all odds, and I still have them to this day. I did some research and learned that dragonflies are messengers of transformation and symbolize change in the perspective of self-realization. Little did I know I was soon to go through the worst and hardest part of my life. That was 2 months before things really started to change. I did just about every online self-help program I could find, read so many books, and did so many different 30-day challenges. And the practices that really got me through were acceptance, forgiveness, gratitude, and love. And I have a little handout I'd be happy to give to anybody with a little more detail on how to apply it in your daily life, because it really did change my life. In my book a little bit later, I wrote, in her constant search to try to find out what was wrong with her, she realized what was wrong was thinking something was wrong with her. And I am going to read just a little bit out of the very last chapter. We are beautiful souls on a human journey. We truly are all connected and one. We are each a spark of the divine. I know this not with my mind, but with my heart and soul. I went to Rhythmia, it's a life advancement center, with the intention to learn to love myself. The answer I received was to love myself in action. Do loving things for yourself. Take care of yourself, your mind, your body, and your heart. Be kind and gentle to yourself in your thoughts and your deeds. I went with the intention to find happiness and lasting joy. And the answer was do the happy things, put up the decorations, listen to the music, dance, laugh, be silly, and do for others. Happiness doesn't just happen. It doesn't find you. You find it when you do happy things. I believe A Course in Miracles teaches the same. It's a reversal of how we think things are. Happiness is now, not when or if something else occurs. We create happiness. I also learned that relationships are sacred mirrors into our lives. If we become angry or irritated at another, they are showing us something in ourselves that needs released. Others are gifts brought to help us heal ourselves. He has brought us nothing but angels. Our state of mind really does create our reality. For whoever has, more shall be given. If we focus on lack, more will be taken. Manifestation is real, although it may be messy. The more we see the good and appreciate it, the more it will come. Energy flows where attention goes. Remember this. Taito Juanita, he was a medicine man at the retreat, said that humans have forgotten how to live. We have forgotten the joy. All the answers are already inside our hearts. We need to be clean conduits for the higher vibrations so the love and energy can be part of us so it can enter into the world. We can't solve a problem with the same thinking that got us there. There's no magic pill. We have to do the work. The addictions must stop so we can face the fears. We purge the darkness and go through the mess to get to the light, to the miracles, to the love. Bless you.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you for sharing, your being brave and sharing your heartfelt story with us. And yes, this is such a time of transformation, certainly for so many of us during this coronavirus experience. I'd like to take us to our next speaker, Dr. Sunny Fridge. It's been said, if you want to achieve your goals, help others achieve their goals. As the owner of Sunny Fridge Consulting LLC, our next speaker takes great pride in helping others to unleash their potential through workshops, seminars, and coaching. Dr. Sunny Fridge is an award-winning broadcast professional and journalism educator. She is a John Maxwell certified coach, teacher, and speaker, and she is the host and producer of the Facebook show and podcast, Rise and Shine with Dr. Sunny. Season 2 focuses on helping rising speakers, entrepreneurs, and leaders to become better communicators. And her speech title is Be Happy and Live Your Dreams. Please welcome Sunny Fridge. Be happy and live your dreams. Thank you.
When I was 5 years old, my mom always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them they didn't understand life. That quote is often attributed to singer-songwriter John Lennon, and I can relate to the idea of wanting to be happy. As I grew up in New York City, the Big Apple was filled with millions of people who relocated from around the world to live the American dream. Raise your virtual hand if you are using your gifts and talents to achieve a dream. I know you are. You're writers, you're authors, you're helping to make the difference in young people's lives. It's great to be among so many dreamers, and you may be surprised which location has the most dreamers. It's not New York, it's not Hollywood, it's the graveyard. So many people die without accomplishing their dreams. Motivational speaker Les Brown says the graveyard is the richest place on earth because it's there that you'll find all the hopes and all the dreams that were never fulfilled, the books that were never written, the songs that were never sung, the inventions that were never shared, all because someone was too afraid to take that first step to carry out their dream. Fellow storytellers and dreamers, if you died today, what ideas, what gifts and talents, what dreams would die with you? I'd like to share some ways to be happy and to live your dreams. I believe God's gift to us is life, and our gift to God is what we do with our life. I believe we all have a purpose and the potential to live our best life. And as an educator and entrepreneur, I work with clients, and I found 3 common reasons why people have trouble living their dream. Some people have been discouraged by others. Some people have been held back by past disappointments, and some people lack the confidence needed to pursue their dreams. And without confidence, most people lack the follow-through. It's easy to have $1 million idea, but you've got to have $1 million action plan. So if you know that you have a dream, perhaps your dream was to write a book or start a business. Maybe it was to become a professional speaker, but you gave up. But I have to tell you, it's not too late. Thanks to the John Maxwell team and Toastmasters, I'm living my dream as a presentation skills coach. And my passion is empowering speakers and entrepreneurs and rising leaders to take the stage confidently and share their message with the audience that they are called to serve. And I host a show on Facebook and podcast, and it's called Rise and Shine with Dr. Sunny. Season 2 is dedicated to public speaking. Did you know when you Google the phrase presentation skills coach, there are over 82 million results? 82 million? If I didn't believe in myself, that would be enough to make me pack up my tips, tools, and techniques and take a seat in the audience. But you know, this game of life, it's not a spectator sport. You've got to be in it to win it. And it can get a little lonely sometimes working from home due to COVID-19. I don't get many guests, but I recently had an unwelcome visitor. I was having a conversation with myself, and just as I was getting my mindset right, there was a knock at the door. I peeped out the window. It was fear. That mind monster had the nerve to be wearing a face mask and gloves. I asked Fear, "What do you want?" Fear looked me in the eyes and said, "Who do you think you are? You go around with your microphone and you interview all those authors and Toastmasters and speakers, and now you're trying to train on Zoom? You don't have the right skills. You don't have the right qualifications. And what about the time you failed?" I thought about flashbacks of discouragement and disappointment. And I thought about when I let fear overcome me because I had lacked confidence trying to chase my dream. But then I also thought about how after 15 years as a journalism educator, there were leadership changes and my contract was not renewed. I was no longer training people, my students, to be communicators and speakers. And it was a difficult time in my life. But I thought also about how, as Dr. Willie Jolly says, sometimes the setback can be a setup for a comeback. And I had to do what I always told my students, and that was to dream big. I don't know what you're going through, but if you want to be happy and live your dream, you've got to grab your fear and grab your faith and make your faith bigger than your fear of failure. Studies show that the mind, the brain doesn't know the difference between a truth and a lie. So what you say and how you think impacts your belief of who you are. It was Henry Ford who said, whether you think you are or think you aren't, either way, you're right. But the good news is we can train those mind monsters. We can retrain our brain. The next time that mind monster says to you, who do you think you are? Repeat what scripture says. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am good enough. I am a success. But to live with success, you've got to have a dream team. People who surround you and aren't afraid to let you rise and shine. Who's on your dream team? My dream team is filled with people who help me and who aren't afraid to tell me when I'm not right or when I am. And sometimes you have to find people who believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. When you need to believe in yourself, you have to understand that you have value. Let me use this $20 bill as an example. Anybody want this? If you saw someone waving this, how about if I scrunched it up? What about if I did this? Would you still want it? Put in the chat why you would still want this bill. If you said because it has value, you are right. You are right. What you have to realize is that sometimes in life, you're going to get kind of roughed up. You're going to feel as if your dreams have been torn apart, but there has to come a time when you have to know that you're valued. And if you feel like you're a failure, as long as you can look up, you can get up, as Les Brown said. I'm reminded of a dream by Harriet Tubman, and Harriet said, the world belongs to the people who have the biggest dreams. And one of the biggest dreamers the world has ever known is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Not only did he have a dream, he had a plan, and he had a dream team at the March on Washington. He didn't need Facebook or Twitter or Instagram to get his followers. Not only that he believed in his dream, he dared to dream, and he achieved his dream, and his dream lives on. Let that be our inspiration. I encourage you, even in these times of uncertainty and social distancing, encourage someone else to be happy. As it was said, happiness is a state of mind. Encourage people to keep on dreaming, keep achieving, keep on living your dream. Be happy and live your dream.
Thank you, Sunny, for your sunny disposition. And I love your motivation. Absolutely great. And certainly worth a lot more than the $20 bill you showed us. So now I'm going to move on to our last but not least, our speaker, Ray Engen. He's connecting to us from California. Ray Engen was a shy little boy who used to avoid talking to strangers by walking inside the safety of his mom's wrap-around skirts. He went on to a career in stand-up comedy, performing with and writing for some of America's best comedians. He left comedy for corporate America and immediately found failure until he added the skill of connecting through comedy to the business world. He became a decorated leader in several large companies and wound up as a sales manager of America's most award-winning small business. Ray has testified before a presidential task force and appeared on MSNBC as the voice of small business in America. Before COVID-19, Ray gave workshops around the country teaching America's business leaders how to create better, happier, more productive workers through humorous storytelling in the workplace, and with his program, Leadership Through Laughter. Today, he goes on Zoom just to hear people say, "George, you're on mute. Unmute yourself." Here's Ray Engen with his speech, Shoebox Billy. Shoebox Billy, Ray Engen. Thank you, Ray.
Imagine the unbridled joy of a 6-year-old boy just living his dream. My best friend, Shoebox Billy, stood 4 7/8 feet above the surface of the planet, beaming, holding court from what he called his mansion in the sky. My dad called it a tree fort. My mom called it a disaster waiting to happen. But Shoebox Billy was our neighborhood scientist, a red-headed, freckled-faced, charming genius that could often be heard arguing, if orange is a color, then so, if orange is a flavor, then so should be purple. As he stood above us that day, no one realized that what would happen next would change our lives that day to this day. I heard a crack, a thud, and then an ow. Daryl, Pete, Silent Joey, and I ran over to where Billy was. He was writhing on the ground, flat on his back, but he was angry. He was finger pointing angry, staring up, not at us, but at something much bigger. Joey was finger pointing angry at gravity. And the next words out of his mouth would create neighborhood legend. I think I can fix that. And then he stuck out his foot. Because in our neighborhood, we didn't high five to let everybody know it was okay. We gave the low toe, the universal sign that everything was right on Apollo Road. Well, there's many kids in this world that think that anything's possible. Billy didn't think that. Billy knew it. And more importantly, Billy went out and proved it. Now, we called him Shoebox Billy because what he would do, he would solve your problems by taking common household items and putting them in a shoebox and then making you fuel it with your belief to make it work. Oh, and these things worked. With a shoebox, Billy cleared out the area under Daryl's bed of monsters. With a shoebox, Billy stopped Pete from catching cooties. Miracle. Every kid walked around, just about every kid in the neighborhood had a shoebox. They were a bank for our hopes and dreams. And Billy had the best interest rates in town. Now, surprisingly, the only kid that didn't have a shoebox was Silent Joey. Silent Joey was 5.5 years old, and he hadn't spoken yet. And Pete asked Billy, he said, why haven't you got a shoebox for Silent Joey? He said, Silent Joey does not need a shoebox to speak. He just needs something important to talk about. It wasn't surprising to any of us the day after Billy fell from the tree. He showed up back at the tree holding a shoebox, and he was excited. Ray, this is my best one yet. Look, he opened the lid. Inside the shoebox, there were sponges, rubber bands, and pineapple upside down cake. The sponges float, rubber bands bounce back, and if the pineapple cake is upside down, the person holding it must be right side up. There's balance in the universe. Spock told us so. And he took the shoebox, he placed it at the bottom of the tree, scampered up it to the exact same spot where he fell the day before, closed his eyes, and jumped. And when he jumped, his left arm reached out and caught a branch. His right arm swung over, caught the next branch, and he wound up circling that tree twice with his eyes closed. he had invented a gravity machine. And that was scientific proof to a 6-year-old. And as a matter of fact, we've never fallen out of another tree ever. Now, after that moment, Billy disappeared. Shortly thereafter, school started. We didn't know where Billy was. Parents said nothing. Kids knew nothing. We heard a teacher, though, who told us that Billy had caught something. And the word I heard what he had caught was a thing called lymphoma. And I remember rushing home going, Mom, what's lymphoma? Billy's caught lymphoma. Mom, what's lymphoma? I was excited because if Billy caught it, it had to be terrific. My mom cried. It was the first time I'd ever seen that. And she did the mom thing where she pulled me in at the same level. And she said, Ray, Billy's going to get really, really skinny and he's going to lose all his hair. And then the doorbell rang and severe knocking on the door. And I jumped up to go get it. Well, it was Daryl, it was Pete, and it was Silent Joey. And Daryl looked confused. Pete was crying. Silent Joey looked angry. And I didn't know what to do. And somehow, something happened we had never witnessed before in our lives. We heard the sound of Silent Joey's voice. I think I can fix this. Get a shoebox. So we grabbed a shoebox and raced off to build Billy's lymphoma-curing, thought-provoking shoebox machine. And the first thing we did, because Daryl's mom always said that the problem with skinny people is they didn't eat enough chocolate. So we threw 16 pieces of chocolate into that shoebox. Well, it was 20 when we started, but you get hungry building these things, right? Next, we had to race off to Barber Bob's. Barber Bob, can you shave our heads and give us back the hair? We are going to create a shoebox curing lymphoma machine. Barber Bob, we all felt his tears on our arms as he shaved our heads that day. But we left with a bag full of hair, completely bald. I had no idea it would be permanent. The last thing we needed, we went to Old Man Pertlewitz's place to get a magic rock. We took everything we could and we painted this thing so green that it glowed. We created kryptonite. That could stop Superman. If it stopped Superman, lymphoma didn't have a chance. We had chocolate, we had hair, we had a magic rock made of kryptonite. But more importantly was our belief. The next day we took the shoebox. 5 bubbly, bald-headed boys burst into Billy's hospital room. Yay! There was someone in that hospital bed, but it didn't look like Billy. His face was drawn. His eyes, so full of life, were empty. I didn't know what to do. I froze. But Silent Joey took the shoebox out of my hands, walked up to Billy, and said, "We have built a lymphoma-curing shoebox machine. This is for you. Now you will be well." I guess once we started Joey talking, we couldn't get him to stop, right? Billy took the box and looked confused. He looked inside, and then the corners of his mouth, they started twitching. I was like, "What's wrong with him?" And they twitched a little bit more, and then all of a sudden, it started to turn upward. And the smile grew, and it went in up past his ears and into his eyes. And pretty soon, Billy was beaming just like that day he was standing in the mansion in the sky. But more importantly, from the corner of his hospital bed, out worked his foot to give us the low toe. That was the universal sign everything was okay. The 5 people in that room knew that Billy would be okay. But the doctors disagreed, and they give Billy 6 months to live. and you can't always get what you want. But today's not one of those days, because doctors had to eat crow that day, and they called Billy's recovery a miracle. Billy calls it scientific proof of belief. We gave Billy a shoebox, and he fueled it with his belief to make it happen. He used the power of his belief. That little smile you felt in your heart when you just found out that Billy lived, that was Billy getting in there and put a little belief back in you. Today, Billy makes shoe boxes for anyone that wants them. He owns a shoe store. And when he walks back and he sees the inventory, he doesn't see inventory. He sees stacks and stacks and stacks of hopes and dreams. And if you buy a shoebox with shoes in it from Billy, he probably would ask you 3 questions. He does this quite often. Is there a mansion in your sky that you haven't lived in yet? Are there trees you still want to climb? Is there anything in your life you think you can fix? If so, then what belongs in your shoebox? Figure that out, and life will give you the low toe. Oscar.
Thank you, Ray. Thanks for the low toe and the wonderful, inspiring story. It was really, really, really excellent. It was great. I think we were all quite moved by it. So perhaps we can find a shoebox for the COVID-19, what do you call it, vaccine, and I could use it for gravity myself with my aging hair and creaking back anytime I drop something, having to pick it up. If I could just let gravity stop for a moment, then my back will feel a lot better. Well, I'm going to now turn it back over to Masako to help wrap us up.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you so much, Oscar, and thank you so much for Storytellers. That just Ray did it to me. I'm still crying inside. This is the power of storytelling I was talking about at the beginning. So thank you so much. I hope everyone is enjoying that, and I am going to give a little bit of souvenir for audience today. I created the images of each storytellers with the link, so you can bring it home and connect with those wonderful storytellers. And with saying that, I am going to pass my microphone camera to Tim. He's going to make a remark. Tim, go ahead. I can't hear you, Tim. Is that only me?
How's that? Is that better?
Perfect.
There we go. Because technology has some failures at times. But thank you to all of our speakers, from Julie and Gus and Michelle and Christy and Dr. Sunny and Ray, for gracing us with your presence this afternoon, this evening, perhaps this morning, depending on where you're tuning in from for us, and sharing your stories and sharing your little bit of happiness in a time when we could use it. We could use a little bit of uplift in our life, and I hope that all of you who attended took a little bit of everybody's story and can look for that happiness in the world and spread it around just the way our storytellers have here. And so thank you all for coming out and sharing a little bit of that with us. And thank you to all of our participants. We so enjoy putting on this event and giving a little bit back to the speaking community, giving a platform for people to share their abilities to tell wonderful stories to the community and spread a little love and happiness in this case. And if you have an idea around a theme of the types of stories that you'd like to hear, reach out and share that with us, because we'd love to find those storytellers and bring this to you again in a future event. With that, back to you, Misako.
Thank you so much, Tim. I am going to put the next month, July Storytelling Hour. This is our monthly Storytelling Hour event. First Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. UTC, 9 p.m. London summertime. I remember that. So I am going to. One thing. Do you see it? Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. We will be here for a little bit more. So if you are willing and able, we are happy to be with you. I am going to stop the recording. Thank you so much, T.O.M. Storytelling Hour, another successful month. Thank you, thank you, thank you.